Hi, today I'm incredibly lucky to be chatting with Dr. Mike Roizen, originally an anesthesiologist and internist and currently the Chief Wellness Officer at the Cleveland Clinic. He's a pioneer in longevity, an award-winning author, has many #1 New York Times bestsellers, and is famous for developing the RealAge concept that suggests you have the power to lower your biological real age beyond the number in years. And I have to say, I've used things like the RealAge Test in presentations to talk about health, wellness, etc. So I'm incredibly honored to meet you and have the chance to talk to you.
Natasha, I'm the lucky one and the honored one, so it's reversed. So thank you for letting me be here with you.
Amazing. Well, Dr. Mike, thank you so much for your time. There are so many things that I want to ask you. I've written some stuff down to try and keep me on track, and I know that I have to really stop myself from just asking tons of personal healthcare questions. I'm assuming when people meet you, they suddenly have all these questions that are about them in particular. I'm going to try and pull up. So I'd love to start with one of the things that I'm so impressed by is that you obviously have a purpose. Your career is focused, purposeful. Can you talk to me about that experience that started it all off, that made you realize at 9 years old that you wanted to go into healthcare and be a doctor?
Yeah, so when I was 9, as you said, I was sicker than what I considered the sickest dog I'd seen, and clearly had a fever and was not doing well. A physician, a pediatrician named Dick Fisher, visited our house, gave me a shot, and within 6 hours, I was outside playing again. And I said, geez, I want to do that. Helping people feel better is what I want to do, and that changed my life. Um, so out of sickness came my purpose, if you will. And then it really changed again when in 1979 I was asked to be uh, the co-chief of cardiovascular anesthesia at UC San Francisco, University of California, San Francisco. I'd wanted to run an ICU in my life, and which is why I trained in both anesthesia and intensive and internal medicine. There weren't intensive care training programs at that time, so I did both, and I was running a step-down ICU, my perfect purpose, what I wanted to do all my life, and they asked me to do something different, not because I was so good, but the surgeons were difficult to work with. So met with them, and all they cared about was return to wellness of the patient, which was an ideal thing, right? It was how fast the patient got back to work. So it was like my goal. I got um, the data from California. They kept all the data since 1970 on cardiovascular procedures, and I found it wasn't cardiac function or brain function or kidney function or liver function or lung function, all things which people had hypothesized determine when people return to work, but it was their age. And so I started on a thing, how do we make people 10 to 20 years younger in the 2 weeks surrounding their operation? Because it was a threefold difference. That is, a 75-year-old had threefold the risk of a 65-year-old, ninefold the risk of a 55-year-old. And so I said, how come this stuff isn't known that we get to change our rate of aging? From that came the concept of real age.
Yeah.
I moved to the University of Chicago as we had brought transesophageal echo. I did a whole bunch of crazy innovative things, right? We moved to, and so I started, there were only 3 transesophageal echo machines in the United States. We had captured all of them at UCSF, and I got 2 of them when I went to Chicago as chair. So we started that, and the crazy part of this is I got to care for in executive health. So I was running executive health as well as anesthesia, critical care, and pain management at the University of Chicago. A Nobel Prize winner named uh, Gary Becker. Gary had done the net present value of investments, as is how he won the Nobel Prize. I asked him to help me with net present value of health choices from aging, and that's how RealAge got born scientifically. And
Um,
so it was a series of, if you will, lucky events that
Amazing.
got me to be able to help people stay younger longer. And now with the potential breakthroughs, we don't have any yet, but potential breakthroughs in aging research, not only can you be 20 or 30 years younger than your calendar age, you may be able to reboot to a real younger age and
Yeah.
get another shot at your 30s and 40s.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about that because it's pretty incredible. I think you were saying now that 90 will be the new 40. So
Well, 90 could be. We let me go and be
yeah,
careful. So, I try and be
clickbait.
I'm a scientific nerd. I apologize. So, right now you can be as much as 30 years younger than your calendar age physiologically at age 75. So, a 75-year-old can function as a 45-year-old. To get the extra, that is, can you be 40 when you're 90? We need a scientific breakthrough where there are 14 areas of research into the mechanism of aging, which have been able to do that in at least two animal species. That's all now in early trials in humans with 14 shots on goal. When I asked one of the Toronto Raptors, uh, if you will, wingman, where I was up in Toronto last year. If he had 14 shots on goal with only the goalie between him and the goal, what's the chance he would make one? And he said 100%.
Amazing.
I think it's probably only 80% chance with medical breakthroughs, but I think there is an 80% chance that we'll be able to literally turn back the clock if you stay young enough till this happens.
Amazing. So what are those big 14 areas?
Oh, there are, I almost have to get a slide out to go through them, but the key ones are epigenetic reprogramming, senolytics, and regrowing your stem cells. Let me go on that last one first. So we repair ourselves naturally, but we run out of our repair system, which is our stem cells, as we get older. Let me relate that to you. So we have stem cells that are pluripotent. They can turn into anything. Stem cell, we started with a stem cell and it turned into a brain, it turned into a heart cell, it turned into a lung cell, a kidney cell, a muscle, etc. And so they are pluripotent. They can turn into anything. When you have a heart attack, if you get to a hospital fast enough, they open up your blood flow to that area of the heart. You send out a signal called an exosomic signal, which calls forth your stem cells coming. And if you've got stem cells, your stem cells come to that area and repair the heart. We learned this when a male heart was transplanted into a female person. She had a heart attack. That is, the male heart had a heart attack. And initially, her ejection fraction, the pumping function of her heart, declined from about 60% to about 30%, even in this transplanted heart. But over 6 weeks, it regained to 55%. And when they did a biopsy of the transplanted heart, they found it wasn't male repair, it wasn't male cells, but it was female cells, her female stem cells that had repaired it. She had some left.
Amazing.
We only get about 70 duplications of our stem cells because of a thing on the end of our cells and the end of our chromosomes called a telomere.
Yeah.
Well, so the telomere gets about 6 base pairs shorter every duplication. I'm giving you way too much information, but it means that we only get about 70, sometimes as much as 100 duplications of our stem cells, and then we run out of them. and we can't repair things as well as we could. So one of the areas is saying, can we regenerate those stem cells without causing a runaway, if you will, cancer or something
Yeah.
else, and have repair ourselves forever? And the answer is, at least in rats, mice, and now dogs, it appears you can do that. And one of the companies I've been consulting with seems to have a drug that does that. So there appears to be an ability to have much more repair
Yeah.
processes. Same thing happens in the brain. You open up the blood flow to the brain, you can get stem cells there and repair it. Same thing with your knee cartilage, etc.
Interesting. It's
And the knee
interesting
doesn't
that,
have as much blood flow. So that's just one of the
yeah.
14 areas. Another is what we call epigenetic reprogramming. So these are, why do we get old? Maybe the switches that control our genes change over time. And in that process, excuse me for looking around, but in
No, no.
that process, um, the if you will, we have a epigenes that control our genes. So our genes, when they first did the Human Genome Project, cost $3 billion, and they thought they'd find 300,000 genes. They only found 22,000 or so. They called the rest of the DNA in your nucleus junk. It turned out 8 years later, the ENCODE project found it was epigenes, and the epigenes are much more vulnerable to change than your genes, but they turn out to be switches, like a rheostat on the wall that
Yeah.
controls your genes. All genes do is produce proteins. In the latest twin studies, as much as 93% of your gene protein functioning, manufacture of proteins, can be controlled by your choices in manipulating, that is, in your changes to your epigenes that you cause by food, stress
Yeah.
management, exercise, etc.
I love that you've
And
said
so
that
one of the
every,
theories,
yeah.
I'm going to go on too long here. I apologize, Natasha,
It's
but I'm
okay.
going to finish this one, and then
Yeah.
um, you'll get to ask me anything you want. But one of the guys who won another Nobel Prize, Yamanaka, figured out that there were four genes. If you turn them on, they repair your epigenes back to the way they were when you were much younger. And the problem was that in doing that, they got the mice, 20% of the mice became cancerous within the equivalent of 2 human years. But now six groups, including the Google moonshot group called Coeco, one of the Aptos groups as well, is now figured out that if you only turn on three, you don't turn on one of the genes in that you can uh, reset the epigenes and at least get mice and rats and guinea pigs much younger, um, without developing cancer. So that's a second of these 14 areas.
Amazing. I do love that you kind of talk about everyone being able to kind of be their own gene engineer, everyone having the capability to do things in their everyday to change their outcomes, to be healthier longer. There are so
Well, that's
many
right. You
things.
are the most powerful genetic
Yeah,
engineer. You control
amazing.
93% of the proteins you produce. We know that from the studies. And by the way, why is this coming so fast? Because I told you it was about $3 billion to do, a little over 3 billion to do the Human Genome Project. That same amount of science to get your genome now for the same degree of SNPs is $40.
Yeah.
So an 8,000-fold reduction in the cost of doing this type of science is why we're getting this exponential growth in it. If it costs $3 billion for one genome, still we'd never get it. But at $40, we're learning a ton about the
Yeah.
mechanism of aging.
What's your view on things like people that might have the ApoE4 gene and linked to Alzheimer's and stuff like that. Do you still believe that people can do things that can prevent Alzheimer's even with that
Well,
genetic expression?
there are two approaches to that. One is the where we will be in 5 years, which is you'll get a Casper, Cas9 or some other gene editing thing derived from um, Casper and literally edit that gene out of your brain,
Yeah,
the E4. Now, the other thought is right now there are 40 things you can do that change your rate of brain aging. Everything from practicing speed of processing games to making sure your blood pressure stays normal to having a half a tablespoon of olive oil a day to they're listening to if you will, to smelling four different smells a day, etc. But there are 40 things you can do now that slow your rate of brain aging significantly. And we don't have data on all of them put together, but we do have data that look like they may not be quite additive, but are clearly complementary. So that, for example, doing brain games and doing physical activity prevents at least 50% of your risk. Um, my guess is with food, brain games, um, exercise, a few other things, that you can maybe get up to 70 to 90%. I think maybe 90% reduction in risk. Doesn't
amazing.
eliminate the risk. So if the risk of someone with E4, the worst kind, is 80% at age 85, you could maybe be down to 8% at age 85. So I think we have a lot of things you can do to control your genes now. Most important is, we call it the three P's. It's really four P's, but it's posse, purpose, and play. Posse is having friends that help you manage
Yeah.
stress. Purpose, which thank you for letting me share mine, which is helping people be younger longer. And play is having fun talking to you is play for me.
Amazing. I love how it's funny, and maybe it's too much of a stereotype, but you're a scientist, you're a doctor, but what I love about how you write and how you communicate is you make things very simple. You come up with ideas like the RealAge Test that are almost branding ideas. Like you're a natural storyteller, a natural branding concept person, actually, which is interesting. How do you think you've kind of built up this part of your expertise, which isn't always the
Well,
case with scientists and doctors?
no, that's the thing we work very hard on. So I'm proud that you recognize that. I'll go how we write the books, and then I'll tell you the story afterwards. So we write the books by writing the science for chapter one. So we're writing another book now, and called the Owner's Manual of Solutions to Problems Seniors Face.
Okay.
It's about when do you move into a different home? When do you downsize? When if your spouse dies, should you get remarried or just live with someone? It, it's all when do you give up the keys, etc. So it's all of those things. But we write the first chapter. We've written the first chapter of the 30 chapters in it. We've written that. We now go through at least one chapter a week very meticulously with three of us or sometimes four of us working to make it understandable, readable, fun. So for at least 10 of the next editions, all we're trying to do is put in humor and analogies that are fun for people and make it simple. So it's really a lot of hard work to do that,
Yeah.
but that's actually what matters. If all I do is tell the science and no one changes behavior, No one remembers that I stomp on white bread, if you will, on a TV show to show that that's not what we should be doing,
Yeah.
or if you will, or saying that the best use of Coca-Cola is cleaning out your toilet, and show that as a video or analogy in the book. It does isn't meaningful. So the problem is, if you look at it, is it's pretty easy for me to diagnose if someone has high blood pressure. It's pretty easy for me to prescribe a drug. It's tougher than heck to find the motivation that will get that patient to change behavior. And that's my job as a doctor. I think most of us as physicians have failed that mission. That is, our job isn't just to diagnose and prescribe or to tell people or inform them, but it's to do things that get them to change behavior. And so we spend an awful lot of time. And so I appreciate your
Yeah.
recognizing that that's it, because we spend an awful lot of time when I see a patient, I have 60 minutes with a patient the first time, and 50 of those minutes are trying to find their motivator,
Yeah.
trying to find their motivation. Is it their grandkids? Is it sex? Is it their walking ability? Is it their balance? They don't. Is it their memory? But whatever it is, they're you've got to find it, and then I play on that every time I see the patient to get them to change behavior. That's what we do with our coaching program too. We try and find your motivator, and we work like heck to play on that to get you to change behavior so that you will live longer, live younger longer, if
Yeah,
you will.
I love the idea of finding the motivation and then building habits to create behavior change and starting
But
small. What are your top recommendations for things that everybody should be doing to?
well, I've said the most important are posse, purpose, and play,
Okay, got it.
and then the next set that people usually want to do is something in the physical activity. But what our usual plan is 25 to 30 things, and we ask people to choose no more than three to start with. Some people will start with a woman might start with a hormone replacement and aspirin if she's at the start of menopause and having trouble sleeping. A guy may start with a supplement of coenzyme Q10. Um, but but many start with step or step equivalents. That is one of the most important things. That is, um, they people feel they're doing something, accomplishing, is they get a step counter or a pedometer, or get their phone, since they're on every phone, and get up to the 10,000 step per day level. It was initially derived by a Japanese pedometer manufacturer, I
Yeah,
think, to sell pedometers, but maybe he knew the data, because 10,000
really
step
is
or
this.
step equivalents
Yeah,
is the
the
minimum
sweet
for
spot.
all-cause mortality and is the minimum for brain dysfunction. After that, you may get fitter, or you may get some other benefits, but you don't decrease your risk of brain dysfunction or other things. We
Yeah,
often will go through something simple in addition, like doing 1 or 2 minutes of balance exercise. But as I said, the most important is cultivating your posse.
yeah,
Call people who you know, find friends. And what you want to do is find 6 friends that you can be vulnerable to, and that really are your posse, that really are those people who will support you. So, posse, and then finding your purpose. Um, and so, Natasha, my purpose, you're helping me so much with my purpose, because it is helping people live younger, longer.
you mentioned HRT, and as a woman, I have noticed that the past couple of years, obviously, there's been a swing back towards HRT. What's your thoughts on the
Well, if you look
controversy?
at our book from 1999, we wrote about the benefits of it and the problem with the women's health study.
Yeah,
So the women's health study really, I think, turned back progress by 15 to 20 years. It was useful in some ways. The progestin used in the most common medicine, Prempro at that time, which was the one used in the Women's Health Initiative, antagonizes the effect of estrogen. So we learned that in a big way, and hopefully Prempro is not the choice of most physicians. I still see patients with it, and it's not the right choice because a acetated progestin seems to antagonize, at least scientifically, antagonizes the effect of estrogen, bioidentical or otherwise. But there's a clear, if you, the risk of HRT is increased clotting. So baby aspirin is an appropriate choice if you to add to it if you don't do extreme sports, that is, have a risk of bleeding. So all of this should go through your practitioner before you do it. But HRT decreases the risk of fracture of the hip and spine by about 15%. That alone, if that's all it did, it would overwhelm the side effects.
Yeah.
It also, though, probably when you've added the aspirin, decreases heart attack, decreases stroke, decreases dementia, decreases breast cancer. So I am a strong believer. I just got asked a question for, I'm on a transformative age podcast on Wednesday, and I just got asked a question by a woman who's 70 years old and said her doc wants her to stop because it's been more than 15 years she's been on it. I believe that when we get the data, it will eventually show that people should be on it, women should be on it for the rest of their life, maybe men on testosterone plus baby aspirin as well, if they've got a low testosterone level. So the point is, if you look in the first You, the Owner's Manual book,
Yeah.
which is 2005, we looked at the benefit, risk, and aging effects. And I think it makes the average woman about 3 years younger just by the data, not even including the fracture risk data, which wasn't published by that time. But with the fracture risk data, it makes you about 8 years younger.
Yeah.
It's an
Amazing.
amazing benefit for that. We don't know how long it lasts. It clearly lasts 15 years. Whether it lasts for the rest of a lifetime, I'm a believer in that, but it is not firmly established scientifically.
Why do you think that wellness and longevity, you've obviously been talking about it for many, many years. Why do you think it's suddenly starting to kind of spark people's imagination? It's being covered in more mainstream media. Is it because there are more ways to find out about it or more technologies starting to happen?
Well, it's like anything in medicine, it takes a long time in technology too. You know, if you will, the URL for the cloud was invented and published in a patent in 1998, but we didn't get Amazon doing it till 2014. What is that, 16 years? Medicine is the same way. Um, and technology is usually faster. But I think so one is our tendency to not get it widely distributed. That's happening even faster with social media.
Yeah.
But I think the other reason is there's a real dichotomy. You see obesity with its consequence of type 2 diabetes and cancer and dementia, heart disease, stroke, memory loss, all of those things occurring. And there are a group of people who don't get it. And their characteristic are they haven't gained as much weight. And the advent of the GLP-1 and GIP drugs
Yeah.
has changed that so that people realize there is a benefit. The problem with blood pressure control, which is probably one of the most important things, probably, you know, in an aging sense, almost twice or maybe three times as important as obesity, is that it doesn't have any symptoms until you're at the end, right?
Yeah.
So it isn't outwardly, you're not fat with it. Or you don't have to pee all night with it or have a dialysis catheter in until the end. So my guess is that the obesity, diabetes epidemic has given us an awareness that we can do a lot more about this. And the GLP-1 and GIP drugs have made it so that this is within the reach of many.
And are you, so
Natasha, are you still in the United Kingdom?
no, I'm in New York.
So the United Kingdom has done something much better than the US in this. You
Okay.
probably know that. So the National Health Service is now offering anyone who is obese and diabetic the GLP and GIPs free. So and they are buying them from the two major manufacturers, I understand, for $40 a month.
Wow.
They wholesale in the US in your favorite New York, if you will, for by 440 and $448. So we're paying an awful lot more for something that can really make a difference to people who think about food constantly. And we have the food, the large food manufacturers have figured out how to make it addictive to us. And our brains constantly think about food, a certain group of people, and that's where these drugs are most,
Yeah.
and by the way, they help with alcohol
And
use
addiction.
disorders and they
Yeah.
help with opiate use disorders as well. So we're now beginning to see, and if they were $40 in America and available to anyone, we would expand life expectancy by that alone by 6 years in the United States.
Yeah.
So instead of being 74 or 5 and 79, we'd have a life expectancy that was equal to or better than the best in the world. So we've got to do something about making these more available. But that's what's going to happen with the aging breakthrough. We think that there's a real chance that one of these medications or drugs or procedures that helps you get younger will cause a breakthrough and be affordable for almost all of us.
Yeah. It's super interesting. I mean, there's a lot of different new drugs coming out, like in the kind of peptide world that people are starting to talk about on some of the kind of podcasts on health and stuff. Are there any breakthroughs or companies that you think are doing interesting things? I work in kind of marketing and innovation, creating new brands and
Well,
business
I think a
products.
number of them are. So I'm going to quote. So obviously, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk with the
Yeah.
GLP-1s and GIPs, and there are other companies working on similar or analogs to those that will also be very beneficial. There's a drug called HU6, which is Rivas Pharmaceuticals. I have no interest in it, but it increases metabolic rate and builds muscle. So one of the problems with the GLP-1 and GIPs, one of the side effects is if you don't do muscle building exercise, they decrease your muscle mass disproportionately, and you stop losing weight and start gaining it as muscle is a very calorie consuming item. So you need to do with those drugs physical activity in the muscle building category, which is, I think, a good thing anyway. The But HU6 may be a
Counteract.
breakthrough in that. As I said, the company that I work with on drug telomere is Telomere Pharmaceuticals, which is the one that seems to have a drug that increases your ability to make stem cells. There is the area of therapeutic plasma exchange, and there are companies starting in that field as well. Lifespan Edge, is one of those. And I think Fountain Life also offers it. There is so there, and we expect, the the epigenetic reprogramming we think is in human trials, not reported to the U.S. clinical trial database, but in human trials overseas now. So we should be getting more data on a number of these 14 pretty fast, and each of them is really remarkable, right? I mean, just imagine if you had a $10 a month drug that took you back to if you were 90, made you functional 40 again. It actually solves the budget deficit as well in the United States. It solves the Social Security problem.
Aging
Um,
population.
but you've got to stay young enough, that is, you got to stay healthy enough until it comes through, because if you got too much structural change, it's not reversible by any of the techniques. You can't have if you will, what we call connective tissue replacing your heart or lung and reverse it. So that doesn't appear to be reversible yet.
What about, I understand that I'm sure there's some amazing kind of drug and kind of big pharma innovation going on. Within the consumer world, we're seeing more and more kind of longevity products, whether that's supplements, like trying to go after senolytics and things like the Brian Johnson blueprint, trying to, create
Well,
protocols.
let
Like,
me go
what are your thoughts
and
on
tell
all
you
of
what
those?
we've, as you know, I do a real age calculation on these.
Yeah.
And so, if you will, stress management oven by itself, you do the average of everything else, it's worth 30 years younger. That's if you're doing the average of everything else. Physical activity, about a 9 year effect for women, 8 year effect for men. Um, Food choices from the best to the worst, about 27 years. So this is just by itself, if that's the only thing that you changed and you were doing the average of everything. Well, there's 17 supplements. We've been asked to look at 53 so far. I got another one today, so 54 we got asked. We haven't done that one
All right.
yet.
What's worth
But
taking?
53, of which 17 have more benefit than risk. If you combine all 17 and say, because we haven't studied them together, no one has, there's no synergistic or antagonistic effects. They're only about a 3.5 year effect. So any of the standard lifestyle things are much bigger
Yes.
than any of the supplements so far. Now, that's so far. There may be breakthroughs. We don't know. But at least so far, there haven't been.
Good to know. Yes, you can try. I mean, I think it's like skincare. It's like the hope in a bottle versus doing some of the things that, like keeping out of the
Right.
sun and.
Now, there's some things, just like Harvard and the University of California tried to patent, Harvard, MIT, and the University of California tried to patent CRISPR-Cas9 the same uh, day. They also tried to patent arisen. I don't know where it stands, but arisen the same day. Arisen is a protein that you make when you exercise, but arisen goes across the blood-brain barrier and makes your hippocampus bigger, meaning your memory center bigger, and should decrease your risk of dementia substantially. That's why we think muscle memory occurs. Why do great athletes have the better memory of their thing? It's because when they exercise, you actually produce a compound that increases your memory.
Amazing.
But it's also why if you keep exercising, you have a decreased risk of dementia, substantially decreased. And so they've tried to patent it the same day. They've submitted it. I assume one or the other or both will get the patent and have to fight it out of who filed a few minutes before the other, since they've both filed the same day. Um, I understand, which means maybe we'll be able to take a pill and get a better memory as if we were exercising.
Without exercising, yeah. What about all the kind of extra there are lots of companies creating, whether it's in-depth blood test panels like Function, or companies offering these full body scans. What are your thoughts on
Well,
MRIs
we are
for
getting
prevention?
better at them. Now, right now, so example, there's some specific targeted genetic tests. So if you got a history of breast cancer or pancreatic cancer or prostate cancer, um, there are some specific genetic tests for that, as you mentioned, E4 and E2 and E3. And there's some specific genetic tests, but in 5 years, there will be something that is really meaningful in that sphere, we believe. Same thing with, if you will, liquid biopsy for cancer. We're not quite there yet, but we will be shortly. Um, as far as the blood tests, more and more we're learning some specific ones. So, for example, if you got you can get tau 217. There are three blood tests that got or are in front of the FDA, and I think got approved last month for early diagnosis of Alzheimer's. They probably are just becoming commercially available as the podcast comes out. But in other words, you can diagnose risk 20 years earlier. Well, if you got that, uh, you said, would you take action? Would you do some of the 40 things? Would you go and have
Yeah.
therapeutic plasma exchange? So that is protein, you got rid of it, if you will. Would you do? And the answer is, I think there are a group of people who would do that. We've been relatively, with the genetic tests on 23andMe, if you look at the tests on that for prostate cancer and for some other diseases, very few people change behavior with their risk genetic diagnoses, which is relatively discouraging. On the other hand, because we've got generic drugs for managing LDL cholesterol and apolipoprotein B and anti-inflammatory drugs as well for doing it, we're getting much better. We've decreased the risk of heart disease by about 60% since 1970. Doesn't mean we don't have it. It just means we've decreased it a great deal through blood pressure and smoking cessation, and other lifestyle choices. And that's despite the growth of obesity,
Yeah.
if you will. So I believe that the increased panels, so we're getting myeloperoxidase in both genders and ferritin in women, and we're getting a bigger panel than we did. We've always gotten LPA, but we're getting that, that's spreading throughout. And so my guess is that we're going to have more ability to get things early, more ability to do stuff about it, but it's going to require people actually being motivated to change
Yeah.
behavior. And that's back to
Yeah.
what I
Totally.
what I believe is a failure that we've done in American medicine. We haven't motivated people well enough.
Is that something that you're trying to do with your longevity playbook app?
Yeah, so we've converted the Longevity Playbook app to a Longevity Playbook coaching program that is an AI coaching program. It's not quite ready yet. It will be by, we expect, February 15th, where you can again sign up. It's and get coached for
Oh,
longevity
great.
through literally there are something like 158 choices. We don't want people to do more than three at a time and gradually build. But the big ones are people know about and we coach them: normal blood pressure, normal fasting blood sugar, normal LDL cholesterol, change choice of food, portion size, and timing of eating. So the avoiding unforced errors, getting better sleep, going in the 40 things in brain health, etc. So if you will, there are nine major ones we coach to. One of which is supplements and small molecules. So when you look at supplements and small molecules that control things we know about, that's one of the choices. But
Fantastic. So it
um,
sounds
we
like
think
a
we
great way to use AI to actually kind of bridge the gap and give more people access to a coach that can help them through this and motivate
Oh
them?
yeah, it is much less expensive for this. So instead of it costing us $60 a month to have a coach, we can do that for probably $15 to $20, including the escalations. So you have to have people who will handle the escalations. That is, what happens if you've got a real problem, and we can escalate it to a real human to handle it. But even with the escalations and the planning and the coach program. So go to longevity. My
Yeah,
sales pitch on that is go to
amazing.
longevityplaybook.com, and you're going to find out that we're going to work hard to find out your motivation and play on that, as well as
I can't
the
wait.
158 things to help you get younger.
Amazing. I can't wait. I have a few more faster questions for you. Let's see. Let's see if they're fast anyway. First one, best career advice, worst career advice you've ever had?
Say it again.
What's the best advice you've ever had in terms of career?
Best advice was my chair of anesthesia, critical care, and pain management at the University of California, San Francisco. When I first got there, Bill Hamilton, who said, always do the right thing. When there's a choice between a compromise, which isn't right, and doing the right thing, do the right thing.
Love it. What's the worst
The
advice you've ever
second
had?
best advice is also one he gave me, which was pay yourself first. There's a compounding effect, and financial stress is a great stress. Pay yourself first also works in medicine. When you first start a statin, it may be a 3 or 4% benefit, but by year 30 or 40, it's a 40% benefit. So there's a compounding effect. It's a 4% compound rate for a statin, a 5% for blood pressure control. But those are, you can use the rule of 72 in the same way. So as finance rule of 72. But in
Amazing.
any case, those are the best advice. Do the right thing and pay yourself first.
Amazing. Worst
Worst
advice?
advice. I don't know if I've ever received worst advice. It may have been um, advice I gave myself that was bad. To When I found someone embezzling money, I inadvertently challenged him as to why he was embezzling it, and got myself in trouble for challenging him without a backup plan in place in case um,
I
he
mean,
who was my boss decided to fire me.
gosh, that sounds like a whole other story. Um, what do you wish you learnt earlier in your career or in
By the
life?
way, he ended up getting some jail time
I'm sure.
eventually, but I did get
I'm
fired in the
like, can we
process.
talk about it legally? Yeah.
Anyway, what was the other question?
So, what is there anything you wish you'd learned earlier?
Um, yeah, I think um, if I had to say, the thing I wish I'd learned earlier was how important posse is to everything you do. That is, none of us can do things by ourselves, and you need to have a posse, a team that works with you no matter what you do. So the fact you have a posse of a engineer on this who clearly is devoted to helping you make this work, and that is, um, you need a posse for everything. And so I think I wish I had learned the importance of posse earlier.
Did you have mentors?
I did. I mean, I had the interesting thing is, I think one of the things I was very lucky was to um, have 3 or 4 excellent mentors. A guy named Ken Melman, a physician and internist, as I told you, Miss Dr. Hamilton, Sidney Unofsky. So I learned the mentors, and I still do. You still have mentors, but you learn. It's very interesting because when I would have a bad day caring for a patient, etc., I was very good at a game called squash. So I would uh, rely on my squash buddies my squash posse, if you will, to be my support. And some of the people were really very skilled at academics, at politics, etc. And I learned a great deal from them. So um, I've got to thank uh, those mentors a great deal. Um,
Amazing. I've also heard you talk in various places about the importance of having a good partner as a good foundation for mental
Yeah,
health. And
so you understand that the most important choice any of us make in life is our choice of a spouse or partner in life, our lifetime partner, and that's absolutely key. And so I was very lucky.
all right, couple more. What would you say you do so many things. What do you think your superpowers are? What's helped you be successful?
I don't. I think it is. I don't think I have a superpower, but my if my superpower is anything, it's having a posse.
Okay.
So it is the friends you have and their ability to guide you and help you. So the
Um,
superpower, um, and the other superpower is, of course, having a family that's supportive.
you've done so much. You look super young. You're proof of real age. What's your thoughts on what are you looking forward to? What are your kind of ambitions in the short term and long term?
You know, I don't want to. I mean, I don't know that Robert Kennedy is going to make America healthy again and help with chronic disease. Um, I think if he does pass the Senate, if you will,
Yeah.
whatever
Confirmation.
sieve, that there's a real chance that we get to help America get rid of a lot of chronic disease, stay younger longer, be more productive longer, enjoy life with less disability longer, and consequently radically reduce the cost of health care by not needing it. That's what we've done at the Cleveland Clinic by motivating our employees' independence. And I think that can be done for the whole country. So when you say, what's my hope? My intermediate hope, I guess it's a 2-year hope, is that whoever, and I think it is Robert Kennedy, will be our HHS czar, really is serious about uh, helping make America young again or
Yeah.
healthy again.
Amazing. All right, last question. Um, this podcast is called Professional Jealousy. I'd love to. I'd love you to tell me someone or something that you're professionally jealous of. Could be a
I suppose
product, a brand, a person, a book, anything.
the person I am jealous of, and I don't know whether it's jealous or want to be more like him, is my book co-writing partner, Dr. Mehmet Oz. He has done, and he is a brilliant guy who is scientifically based, isn't recognized as much for that. Um, but he has done an enormous amount to help spread health. And I guess he's used or been a partner with Oprah in this and a partner with other people in it, as well as with myself. But it's not a jealousy, but it is a statement is I guess I was more. I wish I was more like he is, and not waste time on some trivial things and do more important things. Um, you know, I waste a lot of time on some small things that when you look at how he does it, he's much more efficient.
My gosh, you from doing the research on this, I cannot even believe that you do so much. It's quite incredible. Dr. Mike, thank you so much for your time. This has been just amazing. I'm so grateful for your time.